From field to fully virtual, how Griff Martin led a $1 million a month agency in life sales.
Welcome to the Modern Insurance Agent Podcast.
We're your host, David and Al Denning.
What happens when a millennial couple dives headfirst into the insurance world, scales $1 million remote business, and decides to share the journey with the world?
You get the Modern Insurance Agent.
Here, we reveal the messy, magical, and sometimes hilarious realities of building a business and a life you love.
From traveling the globe to building remote teams. Yes, even working remotely on top of a mountain in the Philippines. We're sharing insights, strategies, and plenty of laughs to help agents and entrepreneurs succeed.
Because, let's face it, success isn't just about hitting numbers.
It's about designing a life that works for you.
So let's dive in and build something extraordinary together.
Welcome back to the Modern Insurance Agent Podcast. If you're trying to scale virtually, hire at speed, and still keep a human touch, today's episode is your blueprint. So before we dive in, though, you can grab all the show notes, all the goodies, as well as how to connect with our awesome guests if you go to jumpstartgonow.com/podcast. We got it all put together for you, so make sure you grab it. So today I am joined by Griff Martin of Symmetry Financial Group, leader of 120 monthly writing agents and 10 agency owners. His team just crested 1 million in life sales in a single month, is number one with United Home Life, and he's built it all in 100% virtual model. We're talking about hiring, lead strategy, and how to keep human at the center while tech explodes. So let's hop into it. Welcome to the show, Griff.
Good to see you, David. Man, I'm so happy to be here. And I got to say, like, you and Elle quickly become good friends of mine. I can see that we're going to probably know each other a very, very long time. And to be on this podcast and to see what you all are doing for this industry is just awesome, man. So it's so fun to watch. Like, a number of people on my team are utilizing you guys and your services, and I'm seeing such great results. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate that a lot. We love this industry. Like most people, and probably you included, didn't think growing up I want to be, an astronaut, a firefighter, a pro athlete, or involved in insurance sales. Wasn't on my list. I don't know about you. Was that like your top three of growing up running an insurance agency?
I definitely wasn't going to like elementary school with a little briefcase in my hand. You know what I mean? Like, just like, I can't wait to be selling insurance when I'm older. No, that was not me. Definitely not. And it was probably like March of 2012 when I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to give this a shot.
Do you think kids will get to that point? Do you think this industry will, eventually shift their PR towards like, firefighter or astronaut or insurance, right? Like, there's some work to do maybe on that.
Maybe so. I know there's like, if you're on a farm, right? It's like you have kids and then you need them to work the farm. I'm like slowly talking to my 5-year-old about, it's what daddy does. He sees me on calls. And so, I'm sort of working in that direction.
Yeah. I mean, your dad's basically a superhero protecting people's lives and families. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing. So, right. Just,
right.
The superpower is, showing them how to protect their families, right? Or maybe, combine it with some super strength. I know you got super music ability, which might come up a little bit during the podcast. What's your musical background as well?
Music for me music's kind of always been in my life, right? Grew up playing piano when I was a kid, and I played in the drums, and I was in a rock band in middle school, and then I played guitar for a long time. And, over the last probably 20 years, I've been playing, guitar and mandolin, more bluegrass country type music. Mm-hmm. And been in bands all throughout Western Carolina, because I'm from North Carolina, from Winston-Salem, and played on the, went to Australia and played on the Country Music Awards one time with a group. And, just had some cool experiences. As a matter of fact, I mentioned this to you earlier, but just yesterday I recorded sort of a jingle for a podcast for a festival up in Virginia called Floyd Fest. You might have heard of it. Huge festival, bunch of big bands. And my stepbrother has a studio here in town. And so they're actually recording the podcast this weekend at their studio. And I went out and did some guitar and some mandolin work on that yesterday. So to be on this podcast and then to record it on that one yesterday is kind of, I like it, man. It's kind of a new world for me here.
it's a busy week, and you're definitely at some bluegrass like capitals in the Carolinas. Is I'm pretty sure. I think I've only been to one or two bluegrass concerts, but they were both in the Carolinas, so I'm pretty sure North Carolina. So yeah, awesome. Well, take us back a little bit, like to the initial hop into this industry. How did that happen in the first place? And yeah, and then as you hop into that, I'd love to hear kind of that. What did that old school field setup look like before it was virtual?
That's great, man. Yeah. So before I was in with Symmetry, right? I was working in the real estate business. So I've been commission only for a very long time, right? 25, I'm 45 now. So I think I got in commission only when I was probably 22 years old. And so I've just like not really looked back. I'm in the mindset that I feel like the whole world should be commission only. I don't have a problem getting paid based on what I'm worth. And so I was in real estate for probably 3 or 4 years before I joined Symmetry and doing pretty well, selling residential real estate. That in combination with playing music, and somebody introduced me to Symmetry, into this business back in March of, really it was like 2011, November 2011. And then he introduced me to Edward Pritchett. And then I had a great conversation with him, and he kind of his posture was very much like, because I was excited about it. He was like, okay, let's see what you can do. He kept composure, and I respected that about him. And so I was in the field driving. I lived in Asheville, North Carolina when I first joined Symmetry. So I got to know the founders of this company pretty well, and was hanging out with Brandon Ellison and Casey Watkins, and actually was giving those guys guitar lessons for a little while.
Nice.
And when I was in real estate, I sold a piece of land to Casey a long time ago when I first joined here, that he has his house on currently. And then I was able to let go of the real estate business pretty quickly and be in this business full time. So my first really 7 years was spent kind of doing it old school, right? I'd get my leads, and Symmetry generates their own leads. So we're able to get leads from the company that are vetted, and I'd get my leads and I would book my appointments. My calls were made on Friday and Saturday. I'd call and book all my appointments for Monday and Tuesday. I'd leave my house on Monday morning. And initially I was driving 3 hours one way to get to my appointments, right? I was going down to like Randolph County and Alamance County, which are about 2.5 hours away from me. I'd get down there, but I'd have, 12 appointments on my calendar for 2 days. And I've got the ASAP, we called them ASAP planners, these old notebooks, and I'd write everything on a piece of paper. And I sound like I'm like 100 years old when I say this stuff, but it really wasn't that long ago that the business was, we were tracking things on a calendar, and I had a MapQuest. I had a Jeep, I had a Garmin on my dashboard. And it makes me feel like I'm like super old when I say this stuff, but it wasn't that long ago. Right. So I would drive out there and meet with families and all kinds of stories, man. I did it for 7 years, and I actually really kind of enjoyed it. I don't mind door knocking. Like if I couldn't get somebody on the phone, I'd grab that lead. I'd go meet them, knock on their door, and just show it to them, and just see if they have an interest or not. And if they don't, then I'll move on. But if they do, sometimes I'd go in and I'd eat with them. I was a big fan of asking for food when I was in the home, right? And kind of breaking those walls down. I was bit by a dog one time, right? A great white Pyrenees. Like I was glad I was wearing jeans because it came out from behind me, right? And kind of got a hold of me, and that wasn't fun. Just so many crazy stories from being in the field. We could do a whole podcast on that, right?
Absolutely. I think there's some virtual stories, but I don't think they compare with the in-person stories. I feel like
right.
A lot of agents that work heavily in the field, at some point a dog gets involved or ever. Or, depending on what markets you're in, all kinds of stuff. But also even virtual sometimes leans itself to quite the stories. I've definitely been taken in the bathroom before on a Zoom virtual. It wasn't just a telephone call and stuff. And, there's some crazy stuff. Someone, taking a call while in bed with no shirt on, and it's just kind of like, okay, well, we can have the discussion this way too. But
okay.
It's, some interesting stories. And you're right. It was not long ago with the shifts. And I think pretty much even agents that are fully virtual now, they're still like, hey, I like talking with people and I like in person. It's just maybe not the 3-hour drive to get to that person, or if
Right.
they, reschedule. Right. And so I always think people should still own their local markets, right? Like, if I'm in and around and involved there, sure. But it's just so more efficient with the virtual that you can do it all over the country, which you do.
Oh man, it's so much different, and you can be a lot more effective with your time, right? You can see a lot more people. I mean, you're not having the drive time to get there, and driving between appointments, and getting home late, and it's taxing, it's tiring. There's still a lot of people who do the business like that, and I think, in my opinion, I think it's great for people to have a few appointments like that. I feel like that kind of breaks down those walls sometimes when you're even when you're doing it virtually. It can help you sort of get a feel for what this business is really all about. And being able to drive out there, see families, and do all that. I'm glad the business is where it is now, because I have people now who can do 40 and 50 appointments in a week. They couldn't do that when we were running face to face, but so cool, man. So we made a transition really through COVID. COVID's kind of what pushed us out of the field a little bit, and I love that Symmetry took this stance. Once COVID hit, people didn't want us to come to their house anymore. And they were really having a hard time. There's still people that were doing it, putting tables in their trunk and like just trying to wear a mask and get on their property and that kind of thing.
In the front lawn, yeah.
Exactly. And I have respect for that. Symmetry just decided to go a different route. And they took a small group of people and they said, all right, guys, we need to figure out how to do this thing virtual. And that committee that was put together just, basically formulated how we changed the way that we do business, at least at Symmetry. And so, now we're able to do this thing virtually. I was out of the field in about 7 years. And I still write a policy here and there every now and then, but I've primarily been out of the field for the last probably 6-7 years now, and primarily just running a team.
Which, opens up all of opportunities, both time wise, location wise, and then supporting team wise there as well. So, so what were some of the first, because that is a transition, right? And a lot went through that.
Yeah.
Like COVID was a big spark to a lot in the industry at that point. And so what were some of the first systems you put into place to make the virtual work at scale, and that you felt like were pretty effective, because that is a transition, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So initially, we didn't have some of the tools we have now, right? Some of the tools we have now, like Switchboard and even like Navigator, and because back then I was writing paper applications, and if I missed like a replacement form, if anybody out there right now who's hearing me who's gone on an appointment, written an application, and missed that form, because almost every carrier has it, right, and have to go back out there. That was part of my routine, was like, meet with new clients and then service my old clients, deliver policies. That's the way I was doing this business. But the idea that we can, so when we first transitioned over to virtual, it was a little tricky, and that connection was being lost. Right. And I'm a big fan, and we can talk about this in a little bit too when we get into the AI stuff. But I think trying to still build that bridge between you and the client is extremely important. Right. And so we focused on that. We focused on the relationship more, sending over like a digital business card, right? Letting the client see that there's credibility there, right? And also sending over a photograph of your family or your dog, just something that make it, you need to be human. It's like if you live in Virginia and you're writing a policy and somebody in Oregon, that's a lot of space there. So they can feel more and more distant from you the further away you are. So we have to lower those gaps. So giving people a very human experience, because just being scripted is a very, very difficult place to be. And I understand we have to follow scripts, but there is a point where you have to kind of let go of that just a little bit and be yourself, right? And look for those connection points. That comes with the phone call. And then when you're actually in the appointment, whether or not you're on the phone or if it's Zoom, whatever it is, we still need to be focusing on that stuff. So we noticed that some of that was, at least I did notice that some of that was getting lost. And so we had to reinforce it. Now, show ratio could be a little lower too when you're working virtual, right? So show ratio, like if you're going to somebody's house, it's crazy. I remember like booking an appointment and they wouldn't be home, and I could hear a baby crying in the bedroom or a dog barking or something. It kind of gets a little quiet. It's like, I know that they're in there, right? And so that's called getting porched. It's a lot easier to get porched right now than it was just not answering the phone. So there's got to be a reason why they're going to answer the phone, So we focus on the connection, we focus on the why, and make sure we have a clear understanding of why they need the coverage, what we're trying to accomplish, and then it's all posture from there, right? It's all posture from there. So I love it. It was a cool challenge. We've got it down now. I mean, my top agent wrote 136,000 last month, right? And he can do that on, 40 appointments. It's incredible what business can be written now if you're in the right vehicle and you know how to do this thing.
I love that. And coming back to the scripts, I think a lot of people maybe have either maybe with their company or just kind of misconception of like scripts is like, hey, this is this word for word thing that you just kind of like read through and you don't change any word on this, to where I've seen the evolution of that. And especially with some of the new technology like Symmetry, for example, that is implemented. It's like it's frameworks. Like, here's the frameworks of this that I'm working through and like how I develop that. And I'm pretty sure Symmetry starts having to like how to respond and coach through and leveraging some of the tech side on some of these discussions and conversations, which I think is incredibly helpful, because I think it's with, I'd love to get your opinion, but with new agents, it's like, how do you get the marbles out of your mouth? How do you have these discussions? How do you handle maybe an objection you haven't heard before, a scenario, and be able to have like live almost coaching training, or like how to, handle the conversations is hugely helpful. Whereas most agents be like, just kind of burn through initial appointments, meetings, and try to get some feedback outside of that.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of metrics, right? And working in a virtual office, right? So we have a virtual office. If you have a live office or where you can go to, that is so incredibly helpful, right? If you don't have that, then our virtual office, we'll have 120 people in there at one time making dials and just supporting each other, right? We break off into individual groups, and we give coaching. It's kind of like steering a parked car versus one that's moving. Like if a car is sitting there and you're trying to steer it, it's very difficult to get that to make those corrections. But if we can get you moving and making some dials, then we can steer you along the way. So jumping into a virtual office, getting that coaching for people that are around you. Another piece is kind of like memorizing your script. That's super, super helpful. If you can memorize it, then you can kind of put it aside. You can think this is kind of a skeleton. There's some main things in here that we need to focus on, but we don't need to hide behind it, right?
I like that. And so obviously, like having, like, especially if you're virtual, then a virtual office is incredibly helpful for learning, training, someone being able to listen, give you feedback off that. But also, how important is it for like the internal culture within your agency there, because virtual also can be a little bit different, where if I'm not at an office, then, I maybe don't see my team. I may connect with them, maybe even have that bit of personal connection. That's a part of all that too. See my leader, how they're leading, how they're positioning things and the direction they're taking us. How important is that virtual office for the culture portion?
Yeah, it's honestly what has shaped our culture, because culture is created, incrementally. It's not something that's like, oh, I got a great culture. It's like you just snap your fingers and it's just there, right? It takes time. It's a lot of communications, a lot of conversations. And, I have 10 agency owners on my team who have received an agency owner contract with Symmetry, and then they all have teams at different sizes and they have leaders. And it's such a great thing if I can help somebody get to a leadership position to where there's some autonomy there, right? And there's also some responsibility as well, to where, I rely on my leaders to show up and to be present with their camera on and that kind of stuff. So what I'm doing is basically, you've got the leadership level, they're setting the standard, they're setting the bar for the people below them. And it's a cool kind of metric, it offers it's what builds our culture. So yeah, if somebody comes in in our virtual office and they're a little beat up, right? Let's just say they're maybe not getting where they want to, they're not where they want to be for the week. They're feeling a little down, that kind of thing. This business can be very difficult. It's crazy. It's like, I love it when an agent has that kind of breakthrough week and they go out and they write like $7,000, $8,000 in premium and they get paid a few $1,000s. Maybe they get paid like $4,000 and they're like, wow, this is incredible. I'm always like, remember that moment. Okay. Because that is what we're going for. And that's the feeling that I want you to have And when you're having a low week, let's remember that good week, right? So our whole team, our whole virtual office, and the way we do things is set up for support, right? We challenge with leaderboards. We do offer some challenges, some of our daily, we call them daily check-ins. Well, we meet with people every single day and we check in on their goals and that kind of stuff. But, people need that support. I feel like that's one of the biggest missing pieces in the insurance business right now is somebody to call, right? Somebody to have a conversation with. And because, like I said before, this business is done and learned incrementally. You can't just sit down and watch a training course and then all of a sudden know how to sell insurance. Like there's no sales industry out there it works like that, right? It's like, I know. Yeah. And if it was, then we wouldn't be able to make the money we can, right? Exactly. This business can reward you in so many ways, in such a big way, right? Like lifestyle and income and so many things. And so just committing. I had an agent, Ben Edson, I believe you've had him on your podcast before.
I love Ben. Yeah, it's fine of ours. Love Ben.
Yeah, he's on the team, and he said the other day, he's like, you don't go to law school to not become a lawyer, right? It's like it's such a great sort of simple analogy. It's like, yes, of course I'm going to go through 3 years of law school, or of course I'm going to go through undergrad. And then I'm going to go through 3 years of law school. Then I'm going to eventually become a lawyer. But it's going to be difficult through that 3 or 4 or 5, 8 years sometimes to get to that point. And so it's a commitment to being a lawyer, though. So it's like here we have to commit to being an insurance agent to your craft, and it will happen as long as you stick with it. And we talk a lot about that. We're all about encouraging our agents and trying to help people look beyond that circumstance that's stopping them in that moment. Right. And try to stay focused on like, when we get there, what is our life going to be like? Like, well, why are we there? Why are we even going for this? So if we can remind somebody of their why, we can kind of keep that as their carrot in a sense. It makes for a much better, it's not like everybody's going for the same thing, right? It's not the way this works. It's like some people are part-time, some are full-time. So it's, understanding that person's reason, that why is so, so important.
Yeah. And it's also a powerful industry. Like it's not widgets or ice cream that we're selling. It's like protecting people's futures and families and finance, all the important things, right? So it feels good to be able to do that as well as really make unlimited income from that. But you made a good point too. Like, people maybe want to be a lawyer, doctor, because income potential is really high. They're like, oh yeah, I've got to go through these years and years and years, 100,000 plus investment in these things to eventually end up at this point where, I'm making this large amounts of income that I want to make. And I think it's important to keep in mind too with this industry that why can be very fast. It's not like overnight snap, but it's also can be way faster than the years and years it may take for law or doctor on that side. And so I think it's such a powerful opportunity where someone doesn't have to have, 10, 20, 50, 100,000 to be a really successful insurance agent. So this opportunity is open for a lot, but like you mentioned, it's a tough industry and maybe it isn't always the best fit for every single person out there, as well as, for a particular system. So part of that is also identifying the right people coming in. So I know you've mentioned you've got, the king of group interviews on the team. Like what does the process look like? How does that work? Kind of your thoughts around, recruiting and hiring.
Yeah. Mr. Ryan Federico owns Auto Mentor. He is on the team and a lot of people utilize that system, man. It's such a great group interview system. There's a lot of good systems out there. That one's great. There's some good ones. That's a great one. But being able to get a number of people and just a quick, then and now scenario, right? That's kind of what we're doing here. Then it was like, I'd spend about $2,500 a month to have somebody part-time and I'd have 20, 30 ZipRecruiter ads and I'd load up my calendar that person would load up my calendar with interviews, 15, 20 a week. And I would be on the phone all week long with individual interviews. I can do all of that in 1 hour now. You know what I mean? By consolidating all those interviews into one. And so I have 5 of those and you can see how I can really magnify. It's also not near as expensive. So, when somebody comes to our team and our leadership all pretty much agrees, this is kind of how we onboard agents, right? We got to figure out, we got to present the opportunity, number one, right? We let them take a look at it. And then we want to find a mutual fit. I'm looking for people who see this business is the great place. And then we have to make sure that we feel that we can work with them. And I'm real clear about that. Like, it is a mutual understanding. Now, if I'm going to spend my time with somebody, there are certain things that I'm looking for, right? I am looking for that person to show up, on a regular basis with their camera on and engaged. I mean, I think that's not too much to ask, right? Work, right? Like working on a daily basis. I know these things sound so simple, but life gets in the way. I mean, we have this opportunity where we don't have a schedule. We don't have this like 9 to 5, we check in, we check out scenario. And so we've got to make sure that people are willing to put the time aside for this business, right? Somebody who can connect, right? If somebody can't connect with a family, it's a little, I mean, I can teach some of that. It might be worth reading, like How I Raised Myself from Failure to, or I'm sorry, what's the name of the book with connection? The classic one. I can't remember the name. I'll think about it here in a minute. But, a book about connecting with families.
Okay.
You got it?
How to Win Friends and Influence People?
Yeah, there we go. That's the one. Maybe we need to read that one. But, there's some basic stuff, some fundamental stuff that we look for. And we talk about that. And, what I love is I go to my calls and people are there and we load the chat up with just numbers and how many people they've interviewed that week or how much premium they've put up, and just to see them. Ben actually ran our call about 2 hours ago, our Friday ring the bell call. And we had like 50 entries this week, 60 entries, people in there just putting their numbers in the chat. And it just took them like 15 minutes to get through it all. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that because I'm just happy for all these people that are on the team that are able to do that, and to see the culture and to see people that are just fired up about this business, excited about it, getting the support they need. That's why I'm here, right? That's why I do what I do.
I love it. We'll have to get Ben on the podcast as well. I know Ryan's been on. Yeah. So for those who want to hear a little bit about recruiting side and Ryan, definitely check out that podcast, Auto Mentor. Big fan. Love Ryan. He's a fun time also. Great personality. But with that, so you have the process identifying, for those bring in, have really good process for group interviews and everything. What is that first, getting them from very beginning to their first app and then to their first 10K quickly in that virtual setup? What does that kind of path look like for you?
Yeah, so they have to get contracted, right? There's some basic stuff. We have to get a license. We do have a discount code for a license, which is great. We got to get them contracted. So Symmetry sets up all your contracts with the different carriers. So that's a lot of this is kind of done behind the scenes for you. And then we're going to get you on our virtual office, and we put you into our training course called Summit within Symmetry. Within the HQ is what we call our website, right? But they go through something called Base Camp, and that's like it's like climbing a mountain, right? It's like the first thing, and that helps them understand how to make a phone call, understands the metrics of how we sort of operate our business, and some of the basic tools that we have for placing people in with insurance products. And then they're on a daily check-in. They show up every day for about 30 minutes, maybe an hour every day, and they're making calls for the day. And the next day they show up, and then the next day they show up. And as they're working, we coach them along the way. So each one of those daily calls that we have are really just us talking about what happened yesterday and what needs to happen today, right? Now there's that piece. There's also the side of, because once somebody, we don't really we're not going to take like a month before we get you on the phone. It's like, we like to kind of throw you in a little bit. I'm just going to go ahead and say it, right? So you may not have all the answers, but here's the thing. I don't have all the answers, right? I've been in this business for 14 years and I learned something every single day, right? But being able to get on the phone and find somebody who still has a need for coverage and just getting that coverage in place is so, so important. So getting somebody to 10,000, right? 5,000 a week is the first sort of metric. 15 appointments, 5,000 a week. Let's get you there. Let's get you there in your first 30 days. Booking 15 appointments in 1 week and writing $5,000 in 1 week. That can happen. People do it all the time. A lot of people are writing 7,000, 8,000 their first week, right? It's because this thing has just gotten so good, right? Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Okay. A clear set path, training, development, accountability, all these things coming together so that, statistically more and more are going to achieve that result as long as they're showing up, putting the work in, versus you're hired, go figure it out, which unfortunately is a lot of the industry, which then people wonder why do a lot of agents not make it? And it is that lack of system, support, help, accountability. So I love that you highlighted that.
Yeah.
Now with that, like there's a lot even going on at that point. Like, you have 16 different lead types, and how do you like sign, track, protect ROI, and what are some of your like top closers maybe doing differently with the same leads for different results?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, 16 different lead types. There's a lot. Like we have basically digital leads, we have analog leads.
Mm-hmm.
Analog just means this postage is involved in some way, like it's a postcard mailed to their house or a letter that's mailed, whatever the case may be. Mortgage protection leads, we have general life leads, debt-free life leads, we have IUL leads, annuity leads, loads of leads in different formats in a sense, right? A couple of different lead vendors, but all of the leads we have are compliant, right? They're all compliant, which compliancy right now is so important. And if you're working leads that you're not sure if they're compliant or not, you could pretty easily get a little letter from an attorney saying you owe $5,000 or something, and all of a sudden you're having to pay it. And if you don't have a company, an IMO with attorneys to like kind of help you back that up, that's a very difficult thing. So that's just a side note. But so when somebody comes in, some people are going to be better fit for the digital world, digital leads. That's going to be a little bit more like lead comes in and they need to call that lead right away, right? Mm-hmm. Comes in at 6:00 at night. You want to call that lead within seconds. Get them on the phone. Some people really like that. Some people want to get their leads and, they can wait a day or two to call them. And that's more your analog lead style, right? They can consolidate a lot of leads in a couple of days, a lot of appointments. Whereas with digital leads, we have Switchboard, which is a whole thing, right? It's like a CRM, like an interactive CRM in a sense. You put all your leads in there and it texts and calls your clients, and it's got automatic dialing systems and all kinds of fancy stuff, right? And that's called Switchboard Funnel. That is a Symmetry-based system. But so part of it being an upline and being a coach, we try to figure out sort of what is going to be this person's, we have bonus leads. We typically start everybody on a bonus lead. And then and they'll get 50, maybe 75 of these kind of older leads. And then they work into A leads, which are the brand new ones, right? So my top producers are really, if I look at my team, we did $1 million just in August. We're hovering around that amount every month now, which is pretty awesome. But if I look back at where the business is coming from, I've got some people that are just really good annuity producers, and that's what they do. I've got IUL producers. They only write IULs, and they're getting IUL leads. I've got some agents that are just straight up mortgage protection direct mail, and that's what they love, and that's what they get every single week. I've got a lot of people on digital leads that are utilizing things like our Lighthouse leads, as well as Level Up leads, even some Razor Ridge leads. And so they're kind of tackling that stuff. I'm not going to tell you now, my number one producer, Mr. Dylan Crane, I can't say what he's working. He'd probably get real upset with me if he's like, don't get on a podcast and say what leads I'm working. But he's worked them all. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Like he has been able to work. He wrote, I think, $240,000 in premium just a couple months ago, and he's working a lot of different type of leads, right? Mm-hmm. So he's willing to adapt. And all of my top producers, they know how to work all of our leads. Mm-hmm. Like being able to jump in and grab a lead type and just work it and just respect that system right there for what it is so important, in my opinion, to be able to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And love you highlighting Dylan. Yeah. Also probably have to get him on the podcast. I look forward. We'll be on stage with him next month at an event out in Texas with, I think, another one of your agencies as a part of that. Yeah. So should be a really awesome event and get to hear Dylan talk a little bit about what he's doing. So I'm excited for that. So, and yeah, I think a point of that being there is no magic lead. There is no like, oh, this is the only type of lead you can sell or handle, yeah. But also like people's, focuses and niches and what they may personally do best on may be different for different people. And so having the variety and helping them find that is really powerful too. But with that and having a lot of variables between leads and people, how do you, personally come to a decision when it's maybe a lever you need to change as far as maybe altering or optimizing either system, technology, process, framework, script versus the person themselves? How do you like, because agents will always give feedback doesn't mean I'm going to listen and
Right.
adjust for every single piece of feedback, or else never anything will ever get done. So how do you determine that?
Yeah, there's got to be, before we make a decision like that, right, to change a lead type or to change the way we're doing things, we've got to make sure we've given the lead some time, right? We've got to make sure, because every lead has got its own sort of like silo. I see them as silos, right? Even if you're working, we don't do a lot of final expense, but if you're working final expense leads, there's metrics behind that. Any final expense agent could sit here and tell me, oh, I got to knock on X number of doors, or I got to call X number of leads. But if somebody jumps in there for a week and tries to do half of that work for 1 week, no matter what kind of lead you're working, it's not enough time. So we have to make sure that there's a certain amount of time and a certain amount of activity done before we can make a change, right? That's the best way for me to say it. So if we're beyond that point, like, for example, I was talking about this earlier, that if somebody's working digital leads, they might be in a place where, if the lead comes in on a Sunday, they may not want to call them. Or if it comes in at, first thing in the morning, they've got other stuff they'd rather do than call leads. It may not be the best lead type, right? I might say, let's get you on some analog leads, something a little bit different. And Dylan has made a big shift to work on our debt-free life system. And he's become such a great friend. Such a nice guy. And he was booking 40 appointments initially every single week. And he's worked over to working primarily debt-free life. And those are bigger sales, and it's a little less time consuming, but you still get really big premiums. So it's having to see less people to write a lot of business, but it's more of an advanced market type product. And so he's made that transition because he wanted to free up more time to build a business. When you're working leads, your focus in this business should be less on just writing business and more on like writing business is kind of my microwave. Building a business is my oven, right? So it's like, I want to make sure that, if I go out and I sell a policy, you can get paid. We got a lot of instant approval products. Most people do, right? But we have a bunch of them. And you write a policy, you get it instantly approved right there on the spot. It drafts that client's account. You're paid sometimes the same day, right? And that's a cool thing. But you may not want to do that forever, right? So being able to build a business and hire agents and build a virtual insurance agency with extremely low overhead, you're in that place where that's going to take a little bit of time. So you need time to dive into things like Auto Mentor and stuff like that. So if somebody starts wanting to build a business, I'm definitely going to encourage them to get on A-leads and find one of those silos, find a lead type that works really well for them and fits their lifestyle. And that way they can take that freed up time and start interviewing and onboarding people. Right. So that's a big phase, a big shift. We'll push a lot of people to, but yeah, it just kind of depends. Some people they just want to work bonus leads and they love making a bunch of dials. Like Ashton, I think you've had Ashton on here before. Day, another agent on my team, just great friend of mine. He was able to go out and he loved making dials. He was like one of the first people I'd seen who actually gets behind the phone and actually enjoys it, and then is able to get a great result. So even he switched over to A-leads because he wanted to build a business. But it's a really good question, man, because it's not something that's scripted. It's something that happens kind of naturally when you're working with somebody.
I love that. I love you highlighting the building the business portion, right? Like in my mind, it's a business when it doesn't necessarily completely rely on me. So if I'm sick, I'm taking a vacation in time with a sick family member, the business is still making money and operating. And that can't happen if it's just you and just you writing, right? So that's a path that I think most agents should have that goal, if they don't already, of how do I develop out either team systems, in place to where my business can continue working for me. Especially like something with life sales, where generally you're earning the income initially up front, but it's not necessarily structured in such a way where it's like a bunch of renewals every single year ongoing forever, and so I need a business that I build at that point, which I love the leadership model that you guys have in developing out agency owners, which 10 is a lot. 10 AOs and 10 agencies. I mean, you're building a lot of impact there, which is I love it. So speaking of, because you highlighted this a second ago, how are you framing like debt elimination as an on-ramp to like life sales, as well as like IUL positioning for Gen Z young millennials, which generally are like, life insurance, I don't need that. I'm invincible. I can live forever, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. They put on their Superman shirt every time we're in their home or in that appointment, and they're just invincible, right? It's a great question. I mean, if you're working with, if you've ever been able to work with like a younger person, and they're like, yeah, I don't need life insurance. I'm never going to die, right? And I'm not, I'm not going to sit there and say, I'm not trying to use fear, right, to like get somebody to buy something. We don't do any of that stuff, and I despise it, actually. And there's people out there who love their fear tactics. I don't allow it really in my team. But here's the thing, like, if somebody can get a policy, like I got a policy on my son. I have a 5-year-old, so I'm a 6, and I have a 3-year-old now. They both have IULs, and it doesn't even cost very much, a couple $100 a month for each of them, and they're going to have like $3 million in insurance, like in accumulated value when they're like 60 years old. It's incredible, and I'm probably going to get a couple more, right, on them, and then maybe even a couple more after that. It's like it's so cool. You can build up incredible wealth for the younger generations, but even people that are millennials. I took on a policy for myself. I'm 45 now, but I got into business, so I was probably 31. And it's still, I'm paying into it every month, and it's going to give me a retirement benefit at a certain age. And it's going to be one of those streams of income that I'll have at some point. But a lot of people can't really qualify, they can qualify for retirements, but 401ks and things like that are not, you can lose a lot of money in them, and they can be really rocky. Even IRAs can build decent value, but it's crazy. If you're in good health and you're young, run an IUL, run an index universal life on yourself and see what it looks like. It can be incredible. And you can basically use it as your own bank. You can take money out of it. You can create a business off of it if you want to. There's a dentist. One of the agents on my team wrote a policy on a dentist one time. They pay in $20,000 a month for this policy. That's a big policy. But they take loans from it and they buy equipment with it, with those loans, and they can run their entire business off of this IUL. And so it can really go a lot of ways. So as far as the debt-free life elimination, the debt elimination piece, we call it debt-free life. And Dylan has been killing this lately. He just told me a story the other day about a 53-year-old. Like, listen to these numbers. 53-year-old has 15 different lines of debt. 15, right? So credit cards, and it seems like a lot, but a lot of people out there have like multiple credit cards, multiple car loans, even multiple houses, all kinds of stuff. Even some medical debt can be worked into that. 15 different lines of debt, totaling to about 1.1 million. And he's going to save $437,000 interest because they're going to reduce the time frame from 30 down to 7 years. 30 years down to 7. Now, this guy is 53 years old. So by the time he is 60, by utilizing one of these policies, he's going to eliminate close to $500,000 in debt and be completely out of debt by the time he retires. And so now what is this retirement going to look like? He's not going to be paying for all this debt. He's going to be able to utilize the income that he's earned for a lot of years of work in the right way and actually live on that money and not have to watch it just disappear on debt. And so this is like a whole mission that Symmetry has right now that is incredible. And I'm getting behind this product big because there's too many. There's the debt, the amount of debt that the country has right now is in the trillions, and it's unbelievable how many people need this.
It's and part of what you had brought up is just like the versatility of products and solutions and approaches today, where it's not your grandpa's life insurance where it's like you pass, your family gets the money. That's how life insurance works. It's like there's so many opportunities to leverage it in different ways today, and those being a huge opportunity that people put in place that makes a difference now and in their lives and in their retirement and the families, not just when someone passes. So I love that these are becoming commonplace discussions and highlighting and talking about, whether on Teams or in ads with leads or on social media. It's really exciting to see these things being discussed and approached, especially by younger generations, which typically would. Life insurance and me dying is not something I want to talk about, but me, making my money work for me, that's something I would like to talk about. Right. So it's changing the discussion a little bit, and part of approaches and things that are changing and versatility a little bit. You mentioned this a little bit earlier, and love to talk about it just a little bit more about, what does AI and technology and kind of that human connection look like right now? And where do you see like that stuff helping? Where do you see it hurting? And what do you think the next year or two kind of maybe will look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, what a big topic right now, and everybody, because everybody knows it's coming. It feels like this tidal wave that's like on its way to Earth. I have a couple of opinions on it. These are obviously opinions because nobody really knows like what's going to happen. But Symmetry is extremely tech heavy. I would challenge you to find another IMO that puts more money back in the technology than Symmetry does. There is loads. I mean, loads of stuff, loads of tools and things like this. So we have automated systems. We were working with this stuff really before AI was around, and we're incorporating some of this into our system. We're going to work with it, right? As opposed to trying to work against it. I saw this in the real estate market back in, I want to say back in like right when the market crashed in 2010, people were kind of working against it. It's like, or things like Zillow. So you have to work with Zillow, right? Understand how Zillow can help you as a tool versus like constantly downplaying it or making it sound like, don't get on Zillow. We used to talk about this kind of stuff, but I knew agents who would just talk against it and talk about how it's a bad thing for the industry. And it's just not. It's something you can't help. So you have to work with it. So I'm in the mindset that people are always going to want that human connection, right? It cannot be fully automated. If it did, it would be, your real estate agents, your car salespeople, anybody in sales in general would really just be out of the business. And I don't want to work with a robot, right? If I'm going to buy something, I want to work with an individual. I mean, I just bought a car about a week ago, and I'm communicating with my rep, right? And talking to him and asking him some questions and that kind of thing. And I like to have somebody that I can talk to also to sort of hold responsible, right? Like what if something kind of goes bad? It's like, you're going to go to the AI bot and let it just give you this algorithm and
bad chat GPT.
Yeah. Exactly. You know what I mean? I want to work with like a human, and I think humans just want humans. Now, I do think there's going to be a lot of enhancements, tremendous enhancements like in the actual industry of underwriting and product placement type stuff. And there's going to be loads of things on the back office, like insurance companies are going to be utilizing this stuff like crazy. But the foot soldiers, right? The agents that are out there that are talking to people, I don't feel like it's going to do much. I think if anything, you need to utilize how to incorporate it into your system that you're currently using. I know that we're going to be looking at that tremendously. We already are. And kind of go cut with the grain versus against it, right? Make sure that you're kind of going with the flow.
Yeah, look at ways to incorporate it to be more efficient, more productive, let you have more of the human connection versus I don't have time to have human connection almost because all my time's taken up. So I love that. And I love you highlighting too, like, almost fighting against change and just how that's not very productive on that side because it's happening whether you fight it or not. And I think that was a lot with telesales and virtual sales in this industry. Prior to COVID, you had all these organizations and all these, hey, telesales can't work. It's only in person, persistency in there. It's not. And then COVID hit and people made changes like, oh, this actually does work. This is great. And it's like, you can fight, but things shift, consumer behavior, all these things. So same thing with technology and AI, like you can fight it, but the ones who use it, leverage it, just are more efficient and going to outwork you because of it, then you're going to probably lose out to those. So I love the tech forward. I love incorporating that. And hopefully everybody's listening on this podcast of need to go out and modernize, especially if you're still using pen and paper and tracking all your stuff on there. Like let's move a little bit more current on our stuff here. So, and Griff, I appreciate you so much for taking the time to join us today. Just one last question. I look forward to continued discussions for sure. But as far as for today, if you could only keep 3 KPIs to run your agency, which would they be and why? And I know you're a big data guy and metrics, so love to hear what those are.
Yeah, there's really 2.
Okay. Yeah.
And we talk about the 2 boxes at Symmetry all the time, and that is, how many people are you meeting every week, right? Really every month. Like we call them sits. So if you book an appointment, how many people are showing up to the appointment, right? That's so important. 10 a week kind of should be your minimum. If you can sit with 10 families every single week, you're gonna make a lot of money in this business, no matter who you are, unless you just like are really kind of just, you're not learning the system, not learning the scripts, can't really help somebody make a decision. Like there's some things around that, but typically if there's a guy named Danny Young who's at our company. I love Danny Young, and he says, If you sit with 10 families a week, you can pretty much send the dog out in the neighborhood with an entire clipboard around its neck, and it'll come back with an application, right? And you're going to write business. It's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And then the other piece is going to be, how many people are you bringing into this business every single month? We call them show the plans. Like, how many people are you showing this plan to every single week or every month? And we leaderboard this stuff on our calls. Mm-hmm. But how many people you are bringing into your business every single month, and whether or not that's contracted agent, whether or not that's how many people you want to get in licensing every single month. Mm-hmm. There's a number of ways to track it, but find a way to track it. One of those two, talk to your upline or whatever the case may be, and track those two metrics. And I promise you're going to build your future, and you'll be able to make that money you need to make right now.
I love it. Thank you for highlighting those two metrics. Extremely important. And for those hey, Griff, I want to hear some more. I love what you're discussing. I love what you're talking about. Where's the easiest place for them to find and connect with you?
It's a good question. So you can catch me in the symmetryvirtualoffice.com. That's our mm-hmm. virtual office. You can pop in there and ask anybody. I sent you over that hiring page that I have. Doesn't have a quick little name to it, but I can definitely send it out there.
I'll get in the show notes for everybody.
Yeah, I can throw out my email address if you'd rather. I wish I needed like a nice, catchy just website. I'm working on that right now. Symmetry's kind of like revising we call our owner circle sites right now. So one will be up here very soon, but you can definitely email Martin SFG Recruiting at gmail.com. That's my administrative assistant, Cassandra. So it's Martin SFG Recruiting at gmail.com, and get in touch with her, and she can reach out to me. So I'd love to meet you if you're out there and you feel like you want to have a conversation or want to say hello. I'd love to have a chat.
I love that. Thank you so much, Griff. Guys, we will get those links included in the show notes. So if you go to jumpstartgonow.com/podcast, we'll have the show notes, including those links, so you guys can get in touch with Griff. So Griff, once again, thank you so much for taking the time. We really, really appreciate it, and for sharing everything. And thanks everybody for joining us on this episode of the Modern Insurance Agent Podcast. We look forward to catching you on the next.